Here we're being started with a function f of x equals x to the fourth plus x to the cube plus x squared. And then they're telling us that this other equation, g of x, is the inverse of that original function. Then they're going to give us some information about that. So g of 3 is equal to 1, and then they want to know what is the value of g prime of 3. So this problem is secretly all about the derivative of an inverse. So let's kind of decipher what I mean by that. So g of x is the inverse function here, right? So they're asking us, they're telling us actually g of 3 equals 1. So really what that is that's the inverse of 3 also equals 1. And then what they want us to find is the derivative g prime of 3, which is really, the notation on these inverse derivatives is always so funky. It's like f prime, or f to the negative 1 prime of 3 is what we're being asked to find right there. So secretly what's really going on here is this is the derivative of an inverse function. And so the derivative of an inverse function is really a special case derivative rule that you just have to have memorized. It's one of those ones that if you've got this memorized, this problem isn't too bad at all. And if you don't have it memorized, you're probably not going to guess it. So if we have our original function is the inverse function, then the derivative of that inverse, again, kind of the notation is the funkiest part about it. So the derivative of that is going to equal 1 over whatever the derivative of the original equation is with the inverse plugged into it. And so what you're going to want to do on this is really the first move is to find the derivative of that original function, because we're going to be plugging values into, this is the derivative of the original function right there. So let's start off by finding that value. So we know f of x is equal to x to the fourth plus x to the third plus x squared. So finding the derivative of this, following our power rule, which says bring the power down, subtract 1 from the power. So I bring the 4 down, x, subtracting 1 from the power gets me x to the third, plus, again, bring the power down, that gets me 3x, subtract 1 from the power gets me an x squared, plus bring the power down, we get 2x, subtracting 1 from the power gets me x to the first. So we've got the derivative that we need. Now let's go ahead, because we've got values here, let's go ahead and put some numbers into place. So remembering that what we're trying to find right now is this value here. They're calling it g prime of 3, but really in order to understand this problem, we want to keep it in terms of f. So the inverse derivative of 3 would equal, and now you're going to follow that rule right there. So you come in and you would say this is 1 over f prime, and then the inverse at, and then we're plugging in 3 for x in here right now. So 3 at that value. So what we're going to do now, that's pretty much it, except for plugging in some numbers. We come through and we need to say, okay, well, what is the inverse at 3? Remember, that's what they gave us right here. That was where they kind of quietly are calling it g, but it's really the inverse of our f equation. So the first thing we can do is replace that with what we know that value is. So this is really f prime of 1, because the inverse value at 3 was equal to 1. Well, how do I figure out f prime of 1? I've got my f prime equation over here. So I'm going to take and I'm going to plug 1 into that. So plugging 1 in everywhere I see an x in this equation, I'm going to end up getting out 4 plus 3 plus 2, which is going to end up giving me 9. So in the end, I end up with 1 over, and then the value of f prime of 1 is 9. So that's our answer, 1 over 9. Really, the key on these types of problems is kind of making sure you understand how this language between this g function and your inverse function works throughout the entire process here, so that when you go to actually apply your derivative rule, you're not being confused by all these f's and g's going on. And the derivative of an inverse is a special case derivative rule. You've got to have that memorized. Thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, please click that like button and subscribe. And also share it with your friends and anyone else you know who might be crying about an upcoming AP Calc test. You can find more videos from me, more sample AP Calc questions, and my complete AP Calc study guide over at my website, apcalcprep.com. Have a great one.